Hey, what is up everyone? It's me EDJ. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back if you've been here before, welcome if you're new. And we're going to be starting a brand new series about the Fourth Crusade. This is by the Great Kings and Generals. Now this is about 6 parts. At least I looked at the 2-hour version, and it ends around here, how the Romans retook Constantinople. So I'll for now ignore the Crusades from the Muslim perspective, though we will watch that eventually, but yeah, so far a 6-part series, and what I know mainly from this crusade is that the Crusaders sacked Constantinople, one of the greatest just tragedies of history. Can't believe they did that. That's so insane. I remember I had a history teacher back in middle school who went over this topic, and even she was angry. Like, she actually was like, and then these guys went and they took Constantinople. Like, they didn't even get to Jerusalem. Like, she actually got really angry and passionate about this sacking of Constantinople, which is honestly very base. Like, she was actually a very base person now that I think about it. But yeah, we're gonna be witnessing that in real time here. So yeah, that's mainly the big event, and obviously Rome is left in a very, very bad situation. Some would say this helped quicken their death or decline, and yeah, this is just a very awful situation for the Romans. But they still hold on for a long time after this, so you have to give it to the Romans, man. They don't die easily. They die really hard, With that said, we should probably get to it now. We should watch the first part, which is about the rise of Bulgaria. So let's get to it.
3 emperors of this dynasty.
Okay. I went a bit ahead. But yeah, okay. So let's watch the Fourth Crusade, Part 1, the rise of Bulgaria, the events leading to the sack of Constantinople by the Great Kings and Generals.
Within and against the Eastern Roman Empire is now a meme known to any fan of history, which no other period featured as many of them as the late 11th to first half of the 12th centuries.
I like how you use the word meme. I've never heard Kings and Generals use the term meme in any of his videos. That might be... Okay, this is gonna be a good one, I can tell already off the bat.
The Byzantines, surrounded by enemies on all sides, suffered constant attacks, and this period affected a profound change in the region that reverberated throughout the centuries. Byzantines, Crusaders, Hungarians, Bulgarians, Serbians, Seljuks, Normans, Cumans, and others entered shaky, ever-shifting alliances and fought an all-out war. Welcome to our series on the events in Anatolia and the Balkans in the late 11th and 12th century, bookmarked by 2 Byzantine restorations. In this episode, we will set the stage with the beginning of the reign of the Angelos dynasty in the Eastern Roman Empire and the rise of the Second Bulgarian Tsardom. Shout out to Bespoke Post. The Komnenian restoration that started in 1081 by Alexios I Komnenos provided a devastated Eastern Roman Empire, still reeling from the defeat at Manzikert, the reforms it needed to survive. 3 emperors of this dynasty, who ruled for a century, changed the course of history, leading to a cultural, military and territorial expansion, as well as opening the gates for the Crusades that would ultimately undo all of their progress. Alexios I and his son, John II, knew that one of the most necessary and radical changes was the replacement of the theme system, which, while effective, was extremely expensive to upkeep.
Yeah, we went through this, I believe, when we watched the overly sarcastic productions telling of the Byzantines. I do remember this. So let's read. The themes were administrative units of the Byzantine Empire with a governor, Strategos, as the supreme administrative and military leader.
The solution to this problem was a new system that was much more feudal and centralized, giving power to the royal family. Only the emperor could hand out the titles required for one to become a landowner, pronoi, who then had to supply Constantinople with taxes and manpower. In a very short span, The local aristocracy declined in favor of the extended royal family, which received most of the titles and land. The competition was fierce, and the entire system relied on a capable ruler who could rein in his family, with the result being a cheaper, smaller army that was easier to control. On the economic front, the debased currency of the empire, solidus, was replaced with a gold coinage of high.
Okay. Solid was considered the most reliable currency of the region, but by 1080 its gold content was reduced to 0. Hypeiron fixed it, making Byzantine coin relevant both at home and abroad.
Higher fineness, commonly called the Hyperion. The empire experienced a revival in mosaic art, built many new churches and fortifications, and
a wonderful and well-preserved to this day example is the mosaic of John Komnenos, Irene, and Alexios located at the Hagia Sophia. I do really love the aesthetic of, you know, the Eastern Roman Empire during its Byzantine era. Like, when we think of, like, Rome, like, the West, and when it's fully unified, usually what comes into mind is, like, the color red, and, like, marble, and, you know, togas and whatnot. But when I think of, like, the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium, I think of purple, gold, and just, like, the fashion of, like, the this sounds so weird, but yeah, like, just the drip, the fashion of, like, the soldiers, the emperors, the architecture, the look, it's, like, this weird hybrid. Like, looking at it, you might not even think it's Roman. It's, like, like I said, the traditional thought of Romans, like, yeah, you know, the toga, marble, everything, the color red, but, like, just the look, the aesthetic of the Byzantines is so unique, and just, it's cool. Like, it really is just, I don't know how else to put it, I just really dig the look. Even, like, its paintings and art just look beautiful, you know? And, yeah, like I said, it's so interesting just to see how Rome evolved, not just militarily, but, like, culturally, always there. Like, you know, even through the medieval era, they were there. It's so, you know, just interesting, I think, you know?
Annually hosted fairs and jousting tournaments.
Despite being seen as Western and barbaric, many jousting events were organized, with some emperors even participating in the events, unhorsing Italian knights. Huh. Yeah, well, you know, did people die in these medieval tournaments? Like, I don't know, but, like, as much as, like, the gladiator games of old Rome, like, you know, I don't know, like I said, that's a big assumption. I don't know if, I'm assuming people must have died. I've heard accidents happening in, like, medieval tournaments, though I don't think they were intended to completely kill people like the gladiator games, which were truly barbaric from the Romans, but, you know, that's interesting, but also dangerous. Like, I think, like, King Henry VIII, you know, the guy who murdered several of his wives, a big idea is that he got he had a jousting accident, and that a head injury further, you know, it made the process of him losing his mind faster, and why he did a lot of things he did. I mean, that's an idea, I think, you know, but at least one that I've heard of. So that just seems dangerous for, like, kings and emperors to be doing that, you know?
Then came Manuel I, who, much like Justinian, was energetic and ambitious, waging wars constantly. In 1167, Hungary was defeated at the Battle of Sirmium and forced to become a vassal of the empire. In Italy, Manuel first supported Conrad III of Germany against the Normans, and then the Pope in his conflict with the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, Frederick Barbarossa. He also fought wars against the Seljuks, pushing all the way to their capital of Iconium. Although largely successful, His wars drained the treasury in return for small gains, and created many enemies abroad and at home. Manuel placated the merchant republics of Venice, Genoa, Amalfi and Pisa, giving them extensive privileges in return for naval and political support. The rich trade republics bought their way into power, built large estates, and treated the local populace as second-class citizens, which aggravated the denizens of Constantinople, who despised the Latins. When Manuel died in 1180, he was succeeded by his 11-year-old son, Alexius II.
That was an interesting thing he just said about the reign of Manuel I. You know, I find that I find it interesting, you know, that, you know, he said he went through all these wars. I'm sorry if you hear background noises, like they're talking right now, my grandparents. I apologize, that's why I'm like suddenly keep looking around, but yeah, like that's the thing about the you know, the Romans at this time. Like, I think of Justinian, yeah, I love how wild he was and ambitious, but it's like that ambition in all his conquests was pretty undone very quickly. You know, I think, like, at this point in history, like, it seems like Rome would have to, if it's gonna, like, expand, it's gonna have to do it in a more slower rate than a straight up just assault everywhere, or else, you know, you won't gain that much from it, I think. And it's so interesting, I said, that just the way that the Romans outgrew their birthplace of Italy and then ended up like spending its last you know, few centuries like at Greece. Like I remember when I was looking, I was interested in finding out how did like the rest of Europe view the Romans, because, you know, they were still the Romans, obviously. And it's like, I think in some letters they referred to them as the kingdom of the Greeks, which I found interesting, is that some kingdoms or some letters refer to them as the kingdom of the Greeks and whatnot. And it's like, here, Italy, where they're from, it's like they're out of there now. And now they're the Italians, which are different groups of people, but also people would say descended from the Romans. And it's like, and they're two separate things, the Italians and the, like, it's a lot. You get what I'm trying to say, right? Like, I don't know, it's just so interesting to me, this whole situation. You know, this is why Rome's probably the most popular history topic of all time. There's just so much going on with it in all its eras. It's kind of insane. I think more so than any other nation or group of people in the world, you know?
But in reality, his Latin mother, Maria, the daughter of the Crusader Prince of Antioch, Raymond of Poitiers, ruled as regent. Right away, she betrothed her son to the 10-year-old daughter of Louis VII, Agnes of France, and even gave more privileges to the Latin merchants, as the empire was now being attacked by Bela III of Hungary in the west and the Seljuk Turks in the east. Maria turned to her unlikely allies, the Pope and Saladin, but by that time it was too late.
We saw the Saladin series by Extra History, which was just great, by the way. It gave me a completely different perspective. And yeah, it's just interesting. I'm liking that we've been in the medieval era for quite a while in these videos, so like it's all connecting and I'm getting it all, you know. I'm Saladin. I'm sorry. Every time I see Saladin, I just think of the scene from like Kingdom of Heaven. Alright, let's get moving.
The emperor's half-sister, and her husband John were worried that Maria would continue her husband's pro-Latin policies, and they were the ones asking Hungary to attack. In 1182, they invited the exiled rebellious cousin of Manuel, Andronikos, to the capital. The latter sent his guards through the gates of Constantinople and urged the citizens to take justice into their own hands. Years of frustrations against the Catholics erupted in one of the most violent and bloody moments in the city's history, as tens of thousands of Latins were slaughtered in the quarters given to them. The mob even cut off the head of the papal legate, Cardinal John. The 4,000 Westerners who barely survived the carnage were sold off to the Seljuks as slaves. Andronikos quickly turned on Maria Komnene and her husband, poisoning them. The usurper then forced the 13-year-old Alexius to sign the execution of his mother and proclaim him as co-emperor in front of the city crowd. Afterwards, Alexius was strangled, and the 65-year-old Andronikos married his betrothed Agnes of France, who was just 12.
Holy crap. Holy crap. Like, okay, we're in for this now. You know, this reminds me of, like, yeah, when we were covering the Pierce of Emperors series, and just how, in the wake of the Diadochi Wars, how much assassinations, political coups, and all that was going on. There's no shortage of that in Rome, like, you know. That's so insane, and also ill, dude. Like, just ill. 12-year-old ill. Yeah, this Andronikos was exiled for a reason. The dude's a menace. He showed back up and basically murdered his family. And then committed pedophilia by marrying a child. And I know, different times, like, you know, medieval era people, certain people got married younger, you know, like, I get that. It's still creepy, though. Like, ew. It's, like, disgusting to me. Like, you know, I obviously, I'm speaking with my modern sensibilities, you know. But, like, yeah, you know.
The new emperor wanted to undo the reforms of his predecessors, which were somewhat justified as they had now spiraled out of control and led to an unprecedented level of corruption. Andronikos forbade the sale of offices, appointed new and fair tax collectors, brutally punished corrupted officials, and reconciled with the Venetians, restoring trade relations disrupted by the killing of the Latins in 1182.
If you ever want to know why I block ads with Pi...
While the people...
That's... not as... doesn't sound bad, actually. I expected him just to be completely stupid or just barbaric, you know, with what he did, obviously, just murdering everyone, but it's not a bad way to start, you know?
People in the provinces enjoyed these new changes. The aristocracy and the populace of Constantinople, who were subjected to this new tyrannical government, quickly began conspiring against him. The city and the province of Philadelphia rebelled, but was then crushed, while Cyprus and Serbia made their own attempts to break off, which were successful. Srem, Zara, Zemun, Belgrade, Branicevo, Nis and Serdica were all seized by the joint Serbian-Hungarian army of Bela III and Stefan Nemanja with little to no resistance, and Regisa, which was previously the vassal of Constantinople, was forced to pledge allegiance to the Norman king of Sicily, William II. All of this happened in 4 separate campaigns, none of which saw a single pitched battle. The Byzantine army was paralyzed and in disarray. That same Norman king led an invasion against the Eastern Roman Empire on both land and sea, at the head of a massive army alongside a pretender who claimed to be Alexius II. He first conquered Dyrrhachium and the Ionian Islands in June of 1185, and then marched on the Egnatia road to Thessaloniki unopposed, reaching it in August. At the same time, a fleet of 200 ships arrived under the walls of Thessaloniki. The great city was taken during the final assault in late August, which led to a brutal sack where 7,000 people died. On September 11th, 1185, while the emperor was absent from the capital, a popular uprising put a new candidate on the imperial throne, Isaac II Angelos. This caught Andronikos by surprise, and after he was captured, Isaac decided to let the mob deal with him. For 3 days, the former emperor was tied to a post and beaten. Then, the old emperor was executed in a horrific fashion, which marked the bloody end of the Komnenos dynasty, which both centralized and exhausted the state. Isaac II immediately turned his attention to the west and launched a campaign against the Norman invaders. a momentous event happened.
Yeah. Yeah, well-deserved death, by the way. Like, the man was a menace, you know? But also, with these regime dynasty changes, usually a lot of chaos happens. So it's like, you gotta, like, establish yourself. Like, Isaac needs to actually really establish himself super quickly as capable, because you're kind of in these transition periods, you're kind of, like, super vulnerable, you know? So, let's see how he does against William. I have two cousins, actually, that are neighbors of mine, and we were really close when we were kids, William and Isaac. So it's kind of funny seeing these names, because I'm, like, thinking of my cousins right now, you know?
Sometime during the campaign, as while the emperor was at camp, he granted audience to two brothers whose names were Asen and Theodore, who offered their help against the Normans in return for autonomy over territory in the Haemus Mountains. In response, the emperor's uncle, John Ducas, commanded a eunuch to slap the more insolent of the two in front of the emperor and sent them on their way back north.
I'm wondering if that's gonna come back to bite them in the butt. Or maybe it won't. Maybe these guys will just literally piss off and never come back. But that's actually kind of funny to have a eunuch, a guy with no balls, deliver the slap. That's kind of... I'm not sure if that's meant to be symbolically, like, offensive, but I do find it funny, you know? I hope they didn't just make a new powerful enemy. Like, part of me is, like, wondering, are these guys gonna show back up with a giant army and be, like, a new threat? Or is that it? Or they're just gonna be a minor inconvenience? Or just not appear at all again? I'm kind of wondering.
Conquest of Thessaloniki opened the road to Constantinople, but an army led by the general Alexius Vrannus won two victories, at Mosynopolis and then decisively on November 7, 1185 at Demetritzes, largely due to the fact that the Norman soldiers lost discipline after extensive looting. Despite the fact that the Byzantines defeated the Norman land forces and retook most of the territory lost, the Norman navy continued to wreak havoc in the eastern Mediterranean and crushed a force sent by Isaac II to retake Cyprus. While Byzantium was busy with rebels and invaders from all sides, the two brothers previously insulted by the emperor's servant rebelled against the crown in one of history's most elaborate propaganda campaigns. The region of the Haemus Mountains, centered around the well-defended fortress of Tarnovo, was a multi-ethnic area with a mixed population made out of Bulgarians, Vlachs, Cumans and Pechenegs, as well as other semi-nomadic people driven out from the steppe. The brothers were most likely Vlachs, but to build a state, they tapped into Bulgarian heritage and culture, which not only endured, but flourished during 167 years of Byzantine control.
Soon after the death of Basil II, total Chad by the way, the state raised taxes and relocated much of the Bulgarian aristocracy. Sorry, my brain fried there. Despite these efforts and several failed rebellions, the Bulgarian culture and language were preserved.
Up to this point, the rich cattle herders of these lands were not directly involved in any conflict and remained loyal to Constantinople. To spread the flames of rebellion, the brothers rebranded themselves in the image of the great Bulgarian Tsars, changing their names from Theodore and Asen to Peter and Ivan Asen, with Peter crowning himself with a golden wreath, wearing red boots, and claiming the throne for himself. Next, they took advantage of the recent sack of Thessaloniki, telling their supporters that the patron saint of the city, Saint Demetrius, had abandoned it and bestowed his blessing upon Tarnovo instead. One of his icons taken by the Normans made its way to the city and was placed in a hastily built wooden church. Peter and Asen declared their rebellion on his feast day of October 26, 1185, which was an important date in the calendar of all Orthodox Christians in the Balkans. Finally, they brought in soothsayers, who were people suffering from epilepsy but regarded as prophets, who told tales that additionally inspired people to rise up in rebellion. As the propaganda campaign was picking up speed, Isaac II levied a new tax that fell heavily on the people of the region, especially on the coastal cities of Varna and Ankylos, to pay for the wedding to the Hungarian princess, which was part of the terms of the peace he concluded with Bela III in order to secure the west. Bulgarian minor nobles, the boyars, were already aggravated due to...
Okay, so I said earlier, okay, these two guys, are they gonna be trouble? And I had feeling that they were. And boy, was I right. Look, Bulgaria is literally popping back into existence right now. Maybe having the eunuch slap them wasn't the best diplomatic approach.
To losing their positions to the Byzantine aristocrats, and this tax pushed them to defect to the rebel cause. However, the rebellion lacked the means to take many of the nearby fortresses, including the old Bulgarian capital of Preslav, and quickly turned to raiding Thrace and gathering more support. Desperate for new allies, Isaac II offered the hand of his sister Theodora to Conrad of Montferrat, an ally of Manuel I, who distinguished himself fighting against Frederick Barbarossa in Italy in 1179. On his wedding day, he was also awarded the rank of Caesar. Shortly after, Alexius Ranus, the man who had crushed the Norman threat, was emboldened by his victories and the support of his men, who—
Oh no. A tale old as time. Okay, if this is going where I think it's going, a tale old as time. A general wins a battle or two, then declares himself emperor. We've seen this a billion times in Roman history. Like, is that where it's gonna go? I hope I'm wrong.
Who proclaimed him emperor in his native city of Adrianople. From there, he marched on Constantinople in the spring of 1187 and attempted to take the city. Despite some initial success, he was unable to breach the strong city defenses, when suddenly Conrad rallied the defenders and sallied out with his Latin force. Alexius spotted the man and rushed over in an attempt to kill the enemy leader, but lost the duel and his head. The rebellion was over, and Conrad was a hero, but in the end he chose to board a Genoese ship and—
Okay, Conrad was afraid that his killing of a popular general will lead to another riot, so he left Constantinople. The prince joined the Third Crusade and fought against Guy de Lusignan for the crown of Jerusalem.
Seek out more glory in the Holy Land, where he would play a key role in the Third Crusade. Ranus was a popular general among the local populace, so his killing by Conrad only exacerbated the animosity between the Latins and the Greeks. With the Ranus rebellion dealt with, Isaac II was ready to put an end to the raids of the north and marched against the Vlacho-Bulgarian rebels. The Byzantine astronomers knew that a total solar eclipse would happen on September 4th, 1187. So Isaac used that to his advantage and attacked the moment the darkness set in. The unsuspecting rebels were
Heck yeah, astrology. I love seeing this sometimes being used, like when Augustus, who was studying astrology before, Caesar got killed, I think he used it, like he predicted a comet would come and said, hey look, that's Caesar. Like, I kind of like examples of these in history where people just use astrology, astrological warfare, dare I say. that I was about to say that's a term I'm gonna coin, but it's probably already coined. Like, but still, I like the term.
decisively routed and forced to retreat north of the Danube. The emperor then took the capital with ease, taking Asen's wife Helen and brother Kalian hostage, as well as recovering the icon of the patron saint. He then moved his army west to besiege Lovek, but this siege failed after 3 months. Despite the fact that the campaign was a military and symbolic victory, Angelos failed to capitalize on it since he left no garrison in Tarnovo, which the brothers quickly recovered with the help of their new Cuman allies. This forced Isaac to sign a peace treaty that recognized the establishment of the Second Bulgarian.
Major L, Isaac, Major L. And he really created that problem for himself. Alright, the peace established the borders of the two states. Asen got his wife back, while his younger brother, Kaloan, stayed as a hostage in Constantinople.
Tsardom, but the hostilities were far from over. The emperor took this time to uphold the promises of his predecessor towards the Venetians, and even expanded their rights in return for their obedience. The Doge was named the most loyal servant of the emperor, the Venetians regarded as Romans, and forced to aid the empire when called upon, in return for paying no tariffs when trading in all of its ports. 2 years later, in 1189, the Venetian quarter was expanded by incorporating the smaller French and German quarters in the city.
In return, Venice promised to supply the empire with up to 100 galleys at a 6-month notice if a crusading or Norman force threatened Constantinople.
In a treaty that named the trade ports Venice had free access to, one that would become the foundation of the partition of the Eastern Roman Empire 15 years later. On October 2nd, 1187, Saladin took over Jerusalem, which triggered the Third Crusade. Isaac II made an alliance with him to counterbalance Frederick Barbarossa, whose budding diplomacy with the Seljuk Turks was worrisome. After gathering at the initial starting point of Regensburg, the Crusaders passed Hungarian and Serbian lands, where they were treated with hospitality, and the Serbian ruler Stefan Nemanja proposed a coalition against Isaac along with the new Bulgarian state, who Serbia initially assisted. Frederick refused and sent envoys to Isaac. Unfortunately, the emperor was fighting against another pretender to the throne, Theodore Mankiphas of Philadelphia, and his courtiers didn't think of anything better than taking the envoys hostage, which started a limited war between the Holy Roman and Eastern Roman empires.
Oh boy, talk about the worst timing ever, man.
The Crusader journey in Byzantine lands was a series of hit-and-run attacks on their baggage train by Cuman, Vlach, Bulgarian, Serbian, and Greek detachments. When captured, many admitted that they were acting on the orders of the emperor. Mountain passes were blockaded, and the cities of Serdica and Philippopolis were found evacuated with their defences torn down. Meanwhile, Peter and Asen also sent a proposal to Barbarossa pledging their support and fealty if he would attack their common enemy. An offer that Frederick seriously considered as he wintered at Adrianople for 3 months. From there,
I'm hoping that this gets resolved diplomatically, because like I said, Rome is kind of in a weakened position. Also, you know, fake Rome, as I call the Holy Roman Empire. I call it fake Rome or wannabe Rome. Apologies to everyone who really does like the Holy Roman Empire. It's more of just like a joke thing, I'd say. But yeah, so wannabe Rome is here, you know, kind of just strutting around. And yeah, now actual Rome has to settle this diplomatically, or he has a freaking coalition to deal with, which isn't good, you know.
he wrote to his son to gather a fleet of ships to aid in the capture of Constantinople, but that plan never panned out. In February of 1190, the Crusaders clashed with a Vlacho-Cuman mercenary company hired by Byzantium and soundly defeated them near Arcadiopolis. Shortly after this defeat, Isaac II sent terms and concluded a treaty allowing the Crusaders past the strait free of charge. That same year, the Crusaders and the Seljuks of Rum would collide at the Battle of Iconium. Barbarossa was victorious and continued towards the Holy Land, which meant that neither him nor the Seljuks would trouble Isaac for the time being.
Yeah, he needed a treaty. Yeah, that's the thing about like the late Roman, you know, Eastern Roman Empire. Early Rome, you know, could just create so much manpower and armies and just kind of win any battle without ever stopping. But like obviously the world had changed, positions had weakened and whatnot. So like by the end, it's interesting to just see how much the Eastern Roman Empire would like try to solve things diplomatically all the time or through bribery. So, yeah, that's just, I guess, the fall. But like, yeah, the world's changing, So, yeah.
Taking advantage of the absence of any Byzantine army, the Serbians sacked Skopje and occupied the region between Branicevo and Nis. But Isaac decided to deal with the fledgling Bulgarian state first. A major expedition was launched in July 1190, landing in Mesembria and heading straight to Preslav and Tarnovo, while enduring the typical guerrilla tactics employed by the locals. While preparing to capture Strinavos, a spy sent from Ivan Asen convinced Isaac II that a new Cuman wave was south of the Danube, ready to cut him off. The emperor decided to move through the narrow Trievna Pass to avoid being stuck between two forces. The giant baggage train stretched for kilometers, and the army was divided into three groups: the vanguard, commanded by the emperor's cousin, Manuel Kamitzes, and by his son-in-law, the Sebastokrator, Isaac Komnenos.
Yeah, I just saw all these hidden groups in these hidden contingencies in the woods. They're gonna completely ambush them. It's gonna be like Basil II all over again, right? Where he just got jumped in his first battle. This is the way of guerrilla warfare, That's what I'm assuming is gonna happen at the moment.
The main body of the army, under the command of the emperor and his brother, the Sebastokrator Alexios Angelos, and the rearguard, commanded by the emperor's uncle, John Ducas, the man who slapped Asen in the face. Knowing exactly when and where the enemy would be, Ivan Asen positioned his troops around the pass and allowed the vanguard to go through it, and then attacked the main corps under direct imperial command. Isaac could not deploy his troops. Once the battle ensued, the pinned Roman soldiers were showered with arrows and boulders from above. In order to get out alive, Isaac II's bodyguards had to cut through his own soldiers after he was injured and lost his helm. The Vlachs and the Bulgarians captured parts of the imperial treasury, including many religious relics. Upon learning about the attack, the rearguard used another pass, probably Shipka, through which John Ducas escaped. Yet another ambush that decimated the army and supplied the Bulgarians with weapons, armor, funds, morale, and above all, legitimacy. What followed was a whirlwind of conquests that included Varna, Ankylos, Serdica, Nis, all the way to Stob. And what was up until now a dual leadership from two brothers, with Peter at the helm, shifted, with Ivan Asen I being the leading figure because of the military triumph. Back in Constantinople, Isaac II disguised his failure as a victory.
Constant L's, Isaac. Man, I'm so disappointed. The Romans of old would be facepalming so hard. But, yeah, dang, that's insane. Complete ambush, man. It's a repeat of Basil II, except Isaac, I have a feeling, ain't no Basil. But who knows, maybe he might surprise me.
And energetically launched a new campaign against Serbia, crushing them somewhere on the Morava in 1191. There he accepted Stefan Nemanja as ruler of the region, as long as he was his vassal, forcing him to abandon all agreements with the Bulgarian brothers, and began contemplating a new attack, this time with the aid of Bela III, who would invade from the north, before Bulgaria could obtain the power and status it once had. In 1192, the emperor appointed one of his cousins, Constantine Ducas Angelos, as strategos, and gave him Philippopolis. That man proved his worth by securing several major victories and returning Thrace into the fold. Like many before him, his successes on the battlefield and the support of his men.
Oh no. Why are you Romans like this? Ever since the crisis of the 3rd century, like, is he about to rebel? is he? I'm hoping that this just completely catches me off guard. He doesn't, but like, the Romans, man, you win one battle, I guess I'm emperor now, and then just coup and like, Crisis of the Third Century is where that peaked, but it never fully went away after that, you know? Like, oh gosh.
Men encouraged Constantine, who rose up in rebellion against Isaac. But when he wrote to his brother-in-law, who controlled Adrianople, to join his cause, he was refused, and the same supporters handed him over to the emperor, making his rebellion short-lived.
Alright, unexpected for sure. Wow, what a spectacular failure.
With the capable defender now out of the picture, the Bulgarian raids resumed in 1194, now even more deadly thanks to the assistance of Cuman allies. Isaac II responded by bringing in Alexius Giddos from Asia Minor with fresh troops, combined with those of the west. That force was annihilated in Arcadiopolis, which was very close to Constantinople, and pushed the border between the two entities to the Rhodope Mountains. Two expeditionary...
Dude, the Bulgarians are wiping the floor with Rome right now. It's insane. And yeah, it's like you can't even have like competent commanders, because like the moment you have a competent commander, they win one battle and then they think they're worthy to be the ruler of all of Rome. So then you have to deal with them. It's like, you Romans are so self-destructive. Like, oh my goodness. Like, just a complete, like, everyone's an enemy at that point, you know?
Forces were sent to counterattack, both leading to a mutiny of the soldiers, who feared that their commanders would lead them to yet another mountain pass ambush. By this point, Isaac II was fed up with this small spark that only included Tarnovo and its countryside, which grew out of control, so he turned to Bela III and prepared for a massive invasion on two fronts. In March 1195, the emperor left the capital and gathered his force in Rodosto, where he received reports that there was a plot to put his brother on the throne. However, Isaac refused to believe that his brother would betray him. This was a mistake, as soon Alexius III proclaimed himself the emperor, blinding and imprisoning his brother and putting yet another campaign to a halt, which allowed the Bulgarians to press towards Melnik and Seris.
I'm telling you, the Romans are their own worst enemy, dang. I mean, Isaac was kind of bad in that it was because of him that he let the Bulgarian situation get as bad as it was, but man.
Two new armies under two new commanders were sent against Bulgaria, both armies defeated and their commanders captured. However, what seemed to have been the greatest triumph of the new state quickly turned into a tragedy, as before the army reached Tarnovo, a Bulgarian noble killed Ivan Asen I. However, by that time, the Second Bulgarian Tsardom was firmly established and became a major player in the region. The constant internal and external wars, raids, and changes in leadership were actually the calm before the storm if we think about the events that followed them.
It's a complete mess. And it's about to get worse, which is insane to think about, because it's been so bad already.
Storm would soon strike Constantinople during the Fourth Crusade. Our series will continue soon, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see the next video in the series. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be
Well guys, that was the first part of the Fourth Crusade. This was really great. I'm going to jump to the next part right now. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye everyone.